Four, three, two, one. Here we go. Hey, welcome everyone. This is Pat Cannone with Lend Me Your Ear. On this podcast, what we try to do is demystify all things real estate. Today, my special guest is Pamela Burke. Pamela works for Keller Williams out in Geneva, and I'm so excited to have Pam with us today. She brings a wealth of knowledge throughout all of her years that she spent in the real estate business. She's phenomenal with home buyers as well as sellers. So, Pam, welcome to Lend Me Your Ear.
Well, thank you for having me, Pat. I'm so honored to be on your show.
Oh, pleasure is all mine. Pleasure is all mine. So, Pam, I know I've given a brief introduction, but why don't you tell me a little bit more about yourself?
All right. Well, I started in real estate in 1998. I joined Coldwell Banker in St. Charles. And then in 2017, I switched over to Keller Williams Inspire in downtown Geneva. I just needed a change, and I've learned so much from Keller Williams, and I'm still there now. And I do residential real estate for buyers, sellers, people that are relocating. I sell lots. I've done foreclosures. I've done short sales. So anything people need, I can help them with.
And I can attest to that. I've worked with Pamela throughout the years, and no matter what a buyer, seller, prospective home buyer needs, Pam's always there for them. So, Pam, we've been experiencing a crazy, crazy market, and you and I have been in the business quite a while, and yet this is probably a first for all of us. Today, what is the primary question that you get asked most often, either from buyers, sellers, or just the average person on the street?
I would say I get a lot of questions from buyers, and they ask me, Pam, should I wait to buy a home? Because I don't want to jump in the market now and pay these astronomical prices that I see, that people are asking for homes. Would it be better if I wait like a year when the market crashes or the bubble pops and I can get a good price for a home? That's what I get a lot from my buyers.
Wow. Wow. And why do you think people are asking these kind of questions?
Well, they see all these home prices going up, and if you remember, in 2008, we had the crash. So they
Right.
think that we're kind of going through the same thing where prices went all the way up. Like in the crash, our biggest year was 2005, and then 2006 is when I started noticing a difference, a shift in the market. And then, obviously 2008 was a horrible year, and we crashed in 2012. So they kind of think it's the same thing happening right now. So that's kind of why they think like, well, let's wait till it crashes and I'll get a really
Yeah.
good deal. They won't have to pay these crazy prices right now.
Yeah. It's pretty insane what basically listening to the mainstream media and what their take on everything is. And it is so,
Mhm.
so different this time. And I know it's the old adage, oh, that's what they all say. It's different this time, but it is genuinely different this time. To your
It is.
point, Pam, back in '07, '08, we we were experiencing inventory levels in excess of 3.5 million homes out there. And today we have less than a million homes available to the public. And a lot has changed with regards to households and creation of households. Can you expand upon that? Because I know that you and I were talking the other day, and you hit the nail right on the head with regards to that particular question.
Yes. Well, when you think about 2008, why did we do that whole crash? The reason being is years before, 2000 and 2005, they wanted everybody to own a home. They thought everybody deserved a home. And I get, come from the heart, you want people to have their own home. So they made all the rules of getting a home so laxy daisy that you didn't have to have any money in the bank. You didn't really even
Right.
have to have money for earnest money. I mean, I would get maybe $500 to $1,000, and they would get that money back. And these people were living paycheck to paycheck. And then to get a really good affordable rate, they would actually go with these adjustable mortgages, which I know you're familiar with, or they'd go with a balloon payment. And with these adjustable mortgages, your rate could change. And then if your rate changes, your payment changes. So what it would happen is they were maybe able to afford that payment, but as soon as that adjustable rate went up, they no longer could afford it. They had no money in reserves. they couldn't afford their houses. So what they would do is they would either do a short sale to sell the house, go back into the rental market or live with family, or they would just let the banks take their homes. So back then we saw so many short sales, so many foreclosures. And then think about this, if no homes are selling, the builders aren't going to keep building homes. So they stopped building. I remember going through all these subdivisions and you'd see like 10 houses built and like 50 vacant lots. It was like a ghost town. It was really sad. So we didn't add to the inventory that we normally would have done with these builders. And then that's kind of why we had so many homes on the market and so little buyers. So in order for me to sell homes in that market, we had to drop our prices so much because we had so much competition. So I remember a subdivision in Bartlett, like they would get a buyer probably once every 6 months. So in order for us to sell that home, I would have to drop it below anybody else and make that house look the best and be the cheapest one. So that would be the next one to go, because if I didn't sell it next, I'd have to drop it even further than that.
Yeah, those were unbelievable times. And to your point, Pam, and I've joked about this as well. Literally, I've gone and done lunch and learn presentations, and I bring out a mirror, and I said, here I'm fogging this mirror. Back in that era, you could have literally gotten a loan just by fogging a mirror, and even then, we might not have even had to tell if you were alive or dead. So it's just a different point in time, and it was literally a house of cards waiting to tumble. And with housing prices escalating and interest rate levels where they were at that time, people were buying homes hand over fist. They were not only buying first homes, but they were buying second and third and fourth homes. And it was just crazy what was happening in the marketplace back then.
Yes.
And I know you saw a lot of that, didn't you, Pam, with people buying multiple properties?
Oh, absolutely. And the thought process was, well, home prices never go down. They always go up, which isn't the case, obviously. And I think that we've learned enough through this crash that hopefully we'll never see that again.
Right. And you're right, and this is why I tell folks as well why I think it's different this time. We do scrutinize the buyer much more than back in that era. In fact, one of the key aspects is we not only do we have to know our customer, but we also have to demonstrate the ability to pay. So debt ratios are scrutinized to the nines today. In other words, we need to make sure that that housing payment is going to be comfortable for that buyer. But in addition, and Pam, the way I work with buyers, I also ask them, what is your comfort zone? What is the maximum that you can comfortably afford on a monthly basis? Because just because I can qualify you up to a $2,000 payment may not be what you're comfortable with, because I don't know your lifestyle. I don't know if you like to take multiple vacations a year. I don't know if you like to go out to eat on a regular basis, on a weekly basis. I don't know if you send your children to a private school. Those types of things do not show up in your debt ratio. So if I can pre-approve you up to, for instance, on FHA, in excess of 50% of your gross income, that may not be what's right for you. So the key question I always ask is, what are you comfortable with? Because if we approve you at a level, the last thing that I want, and I know it's the last thing you want, Pam, is that a homeowner gets into their home 2 or 3 months down the road, all they're doing is living for their home and not enjoying life. And life is meant to be enjoyed. You need to do other things than to live and work for your home.
I totally agree.
Yeah. So what makes it different this time, Pam? What has changed with the demographics that's making it different? It's no secret we're from the boomer generation, the tail end of the boomer generation. But what's happening now that's keen? What occurred the past couple of years? Yes, the pandemic had something to do with it, but there are other things that happened. What's your take on that, Pam?
There's about 5 things that has happened. So one of them, in the recent years, our interest rates have dropped to ungodly low numbers. I've seen people get rates in the 2% and the 3%. And what that does is it drives all of our buyers that can qualify for a home to be able to, get in the marketplace. So we got droves of buyers because they want to take advantage of that low interest rate. And why would you? Because you can buy more house. You can buy a bigger house. You can get one that's fixed up versus a fixer upper, because money's very, very cheap right now. So that is the first reason I believe is why we have so many buyers. The second one would be we have such a big buyer pool of millennials, and they are in this market right now wanting to buy homes. And our baby boomers were our biggest buyer pool. Now the millennials are actually even bigger than our buyer pool. And then Gen Z buyers are just starting to hit the market. So now we have all of our millennials, our Gen Zs are hitting the market, as well as any buyer that can qualify for a loan wants to take advantage of these low rates.
So
So
Pam, you're telling me, Pam, that millennials and Gen Zers are not living in their parents' basements?
not all of them. I think they're getting tired of living in their basements. They want out.
Okay, they want out. They want their mad day out. They want to go and establish a household.
And a lot of them I see, a lot of my clients are, they're engaged or boyfriend, girlfriend, but they plan on getting married. They plan on having kids in the next couple of years. They don't want to live in their mom's basement. They want their own place to raise their children and be happy. So yeah, a lot of them are in the market right now, and there's just so many of them. And then, like I talked about before, we didn't build homes from like 2008 to 2000, probably 15. We just started building homes very recently. So we lost a lot of homes that should be in the market today that are not. And then the last one is the pandemic. Now think about this. In 2020, everyone stayed home. People started working remotely, and that's kind of the norm for a lot of people right now. So now they look at their house like, God, I'm home all the time. I need an office if they didn't have one. I need more living space because my family's getting really tight. I might want more land. So a lot of people that do remote work, they are selling their homes and buying bigger homes and moving further west, I've seen, because they don't have to be commuting to work. So, that's a big part of it as well, is why there's so many buyers on the market.
Yeah. So I've got this stat up on the screen right now that shows that there are 14 million more households today than there were back in 2007, and 3 million fewer homes. And to your point, Pam, and I think you brought it up, where home builders were building less homes because of what happened after the crash of 07, 08.
Right.
And it's taken them a little bit of time to amp up. And COVID, unfortunately, one of the downsides of COVID was the supply chain issues, and it drove up lumber prices. So that drove up the construction costs, which also put a damper on the ability for these builders to build homes. And on top of it, the crunch of workers, where they're struggling to find quality tradespeople to build these homes. So we've got a lot of different moving pieces here that are affecting the housing market right now.
Absolutely.
So Pam, what are you telling then your home buyer today? Let's say you get a first-time home buyer that wants to wait, and and again, none of us have that crystal ball. But what would you tell a prospective home buyer today as to what he or she or a couple should think about or look into?
Well, I would say if you're going to wait, let's think about this. All right. Next year, we have no idea what the interest rates are going to be. They could jump to like 7 or 8%. We don't know. No one's got that crystal ball. And right now, even though they've went up, they're still in the fives. And if you look at the last 50 years of interest rates, the average interest rate is 7.3. We're still below that. So it's still a good rate, even though it's not the twos or threes, it's still an excellent rate to buy a home. You're not in the 20s, you're not in the 15s, you're not in the 10s. So why not buy? And if you wait, now let's look at how much homes have appreciated. In 2020 with the pandemic, everything shut down for a couple minutes, but man, when it opened it up, it was like floodgates. That was actually my best year in real estate, was 2020. And I didn't really do anything for 3 months. Think about that. So people's appreciation in that year went up as high as around 29%. Typical appreciation is 3 to 5. So think about that. That is a ton of appreciation in homes. And then we thought, well, maybe it'll slow down, the next year. And it did slow down just a smidge. And people gained about 19% appreciation in homes. And then we thought 2022 would start to shift a little bit. And it just recently started shifting, but we still have so many buyers and so little low inventory that we're probably going to be about 20% appreciation for this year. So now you're going to wait for 2023. If you look at 29%, 19%, we'll probably be in the low 20s for this year. That's a lot of money. If you buy a house now and you wait till next year, you're going to just get money that you didn't even have to work for or save for. You're just going to appreciate in your home. So why are you going to like wait a year? And you're not going to be able to save up that money most likely just to match the appreciation. And you're going to miss out maybe on a lower rate, than a higher rate next year. And even if the rates do drop next year, you can always refinance your home to a lower rate too. So people worried like, oh, what if it drops again? Then you just refinance. So
Absolutely.
I try to paint that picture like you're going to be worse off by waiting next year.
So, I mean, to your point, Pam, we, the collective we as Americans, find it difficult to save money. So if you're paying rent, so let's say you are paying somebody rent, what's going to change that's going to put you in a better position? So I just put up this chart that shows, counterintuitively, the housing market actually stays strong after a recession. And this chart shows that historically, during every recession, we've gone up in value. The only time that we saw a dip down was something that was artificially created, which was the bubble of 07, 08. But other than that, historically, every single recession that we have going back to 1960 has resulted in higher housing prices. The other that's resulted in all of these periods of time, to your point, is interest rates.
Mm-hmm.
Every single time that that a recession hits, it indicates that interest rates have peaked and they start coming down. Again, no one has that crystal ball, but if history may not repeat, but as I joke around, like Mark Twain says, even though history may not repeat, it does certainly rhyme. We should historically see rates come back down. And to your point, Pam, well, then you're in that home, and then we can take advantage of refinancing. Both you and I, Pam, bought homes years ago. My first house, I was at 12% interest rate, and progressively I refinanced. And yes, I was able to take advantage of the sub 3% rates. Will we get to those levels again? I don't know. We never know. But, if you can get yourself into a position to be a homeowner sooner rather than later, just about any financial advisor will tell you that owning and investing in a home will put you on a path to generational wealth. It's one of the biggest wealth creators in this country. I'll get off my soapbox here.
No, I totally agree with you. And if people rent all the way until they retire, a lot of times they can barely make ends meet because there just isn't enough money with Social Security. They weren't able to save enough because they paid rent. Yeah, they made their landlords rich and they got their homes paid for and they've got their wealth, but you're stuck with nothing really to show for all that money you put into it. I have someone that's been renting for 2 years at approximately $2,500 a month. That's a lot of money. That's usually a mortgage payment, if not over a mortgage payment. And rents are very high, and there's not a lot of inventory with the rental market as well. So I'm trying to convince her because her lease is up to say, hey, all right, you have paid $60,000 in rent in 2 years. Think about it.
Yeah, and when you've got to put those numbers in front of people because they don't realize sometimes what they're handing out of pocket.
Yes. And I know some situations where people just can't buy because of personal reasons. Or they're not sure how long they're going to be there. Or, they're kind of unstable. Like my son's renting because he just got his first job. I don't know how long he's going to be there. So sometimes it doesn't make sense. But if you know you're going to be there for at least a couple of years, because even in a year in our market, you've got good appreciation. It makes sense to buy. And, you get more write-offs that way as well. You save money. So to rent really doesn't make sense unless you know.
Right. To your point, my youngest son as well doesn't know where he wants to ultimately live, and that makes sense. You explore the area, you rent for a short period of time, but longer term, once you want to settle roots, at least historically, again, no crystal ball, but historically, home ownership has been one of the best investments that you could make. Now, Pam, what kind of market should we be in? Where do we need to be where we can be in a sort of better space with regards to inventory and number of households? What would you say?
We really need to be in a balanced market. What is a balanced market? People ask. Well, we have a buyer's market, a seller's market, and a balanced market. If it takes us 1 to 3 months to sell a home, that is a seller's market. So that means we have less homes and more buyers. From 3 to 5 months means we have about the same number of buyers and the same number of sellers. That is a healthy balanced market. That is our goal, to be in that market. If it takes more than 5 months to sell a home, that means we're in a buyer's market, that homes will be sitting longer because there's more homes than we have buyers. So our goal is to be in a balanced market. Yeah, it's great for our sellers right now. They are making tons of money on their homes, but overall, it's not a good market. So by the government raising interest rates is actually a good thing, because it is going to pull some buyers out of the market. When they went up, some people couldn't qualify anymore, or they don't like the house that they could get now. So they're like, no, I'm going to hold off. So we really do want to pull the reins back and get back to a balanced market. That is everyone's goal, and it's good for everyone to be in that market.
Uh, great point, Pam. And to your point about um, an individual making a choice, many times, and I find, and you'd be the expert at this, do you find that a lot of your first time home buyers want a forever home as their first home? Could this be the type of market that, rather than making your first home a forever home, purchase a home that you can afford today and build some equity by either appreciation or putting more money towards principal, and then get your forever home a few years from now?
Right. Yeah. It doesn't make sense to wait for that perfect home. And I mean, I have a buyer like that, and she's waiting because she's just not liking anything. But I'm all about, like, don't worry about the cosmetics of a home. You can change the countertops, you can change the cabinets, you can change the flooring. If you've got a good home with good bones on a good lot, maybe a school district is important to you, you can do those things over time as long as it's
Absolutely.
livable. You can make it, and then you make it the way that you want to make it. Some people buy an updated home. Yeah, it's new granite or new quartz
There,
countertops that may not have been their taste, or the
exactly.
cabinets are good quality. And we actually had a buyer, me and you together, Pat, and she's like, "Oh my God, it's just not me." But they're
Yeah,
gorgeous cabinets. But she wasn't going to redo them because
right.
they were a lot of money. So it's if you buy these little bit of fixer upper homes, or homes that just not are perfect, it's okay. Just have that vision that it can be changed down the line.
Absolutely. And to your point, and I know that I've discussed this and did a presentation at your office. We do at Loan Depot do renovation financing. So depending on the purchase value of the home and the type of renovations that you make, we potentially can make that less than perfect home into the home of your dreams. So there are a number of avenues to pursue, but one of the things that you need to do is make that decision to get off the fence. You can purchase a home today as a first-time home buyer with as little as 3% down. And there are some limited down payment assistance programs out there. So there are a lot of different options for individuals, even if you don't have 20% to put down, because that's a misconception out there that I always hear. Oh, is I need 20% down. And honestly, you don't. It's better to take that plunge sooner rather than later. So
Absolutely.
now you mentioned, Pam, the pandemic and the growth in valuations out there. So what
Mhm.
does that mean to the person who bought a home a few years ago, as far as the equity that's built up, and how that potentially can be another difference maker from where it was in 07, 08 to where we are today as far as equity?
Well, I mean, they're going to be able to just gain a lot of equity in their home. So if they needed to purchase something, they can pull it from their house if they choose to. I don't really recommend that all the times, but it's
Right.
still an option there for them. The only thing I'm worried about a little bit is that everybody that got in the twos and the threes, they're not going to want to get rid of that rate. When that rate does go up to, higher, they may not want to sell their homes because they're like, well, I'm going to lose my 2% or 3% rate. and now I have to pay, 7 or 8%. I'm just curious to see what happens in the future,
Yeah.
that if we might have this problem again because people don't want to get rid of their great rates.
That's a great point, Pam. And I've thought about this. I've done some personal thought experiments, and I agree. That might push an individual to say, you know what? I don't want to get rid of this interest rate.
Mhm.
And, yes, I know that rates are only, 5.75 or 6% or wherever they are today. And, whenever you're watching this podcast, things change on a day-to-day basis. But that might be a, a factor that may also put a damper on the number of homes that are out there and available for inventory. So yeah, that remains to be seen what's going to occur. So to your point, it is a good thing for interest rates to go up because it's putting a damper on inflation and also is cooling an overheated market. But it may be creating a situation down the road where we're going to continue to have limited inventory because you're going to have a pool of potential home sellers that are going to be, do I want to go from 3% to 6%? So that great point, Pam, great point. And, what do you say to an individual that says, well, I'm going to wait for interest rates to come down. I don't want to pay 5.75, 6% interest rate. What do you say to
I,
folks
I,
like
I
that?
just tell them, like, I know 5.75 sounds really high when you've seen the twos and threes, but the twos and threes were just historically low rates. We may never see them again. So don't judge it on that amount, because it's not really a realistic rate. And I really don't think we're going to see those for a very long time, if at all, in
Right,
the next 20 years. So what if you're going to wait for them to come back down, you're going to be missing out on building equity in your home. You have to buy a home to start. If you just keep waiting. I have a buyer right now, and he's your buyer too. He's been looking for 3 years now, 4 years, still hasn't bought, and he's rented a very expensive home all that time. If he would have bought 3 years ago, just think of how much equity he would have made. He wouldn't have to work for that money. It just built in your house.
right.
And people just they're hesitant, but you gotta jump in that pool sooner or later, and then learn how to swim. So the
Exactly.
earlier you
Right.
start, and you're probably going to stay in that home ownership for the rest of your lives, most likely. So the sooner you get in, the better you'll be. So just jump in the pool. Join the rest of us.
Join the rest of us. That makes so much sense. And
Yes.
and if we are going to go into a typical cycle that interest rates come down, as Pam mentioned earlier, well then we refinance. And
Mhm.
we may never see sub 3% interest rates again because one of the major reasons that occurred was because of the pandemic and the Fed needing to drop the discount rate to zero, meaning that all interest rates throughout the entire economy were lower. But before the pandemic, we were in the fours and then the high threes. So it's not. If we get back to those levels, it should be still a comfortable level. And as Pam said, you can always refinance. Taking the plunge is better than not because, as we've been sharing with you, the total number of households is continuing to increase. Uh, Millennials and Gen Z are going into the marketplace, and they are no longer living in our basements. They're coming out, and they want to purchase a piece of the American dream home. So, if you're thinking of waiting, give one of us a call. We'd be happy to help. Um, so, Pam, is there anything else that you wanted to discuss with regards to how you work with home buyers or sellers, or just basically your general approach?
Well, when I get a call for a buyer, like a lot of realtors I know will just, like, ask them some basic questions: bedrooms, bathrooms, towns, price range, set them up on a search, and then meet them at that first house, because it's simple, it's easy.
Sure.
I think that is doing your buyer a big injustice. When I have a buyer, I sit down with them either on a phone call, on Zoom, or I'll meet them at a Starbucks, and I ask them a ton of questions, because it's not about just the number of bedrooms, baths, and all that. You want to learn about their lifestyle. And it's funny when you have like a couple with you and you start asking all these questions, like they'll say, "Oh, I really want a big lot." Well, a normal person would go and just put in like, oh, I want to do like over a half acre lot or to 2 acres. But if I would have been asked more questions like, well, what's important to you about that big lot? Well, I like privacy. I don't want to see my neighbors. Well, if I can find you a house with maybe a quarter acre, but there's plenty of trees and you weren't able to see your neighbors, would that work? Yes. Well, now I found out I don't have to look for that big lot, or I don't get the phone call like, oh my God, if I bought a house, Pam, I found this house, and I'm like, wait a minute, that one's like 0.10 acre of a lot. Yeah, but it's so private. So you really need to dig down and ask 3 deep questions to your people to really know what they mean. If they say something, don't assume you know what they mean by that. You ask them, well, what do you mean by that? Like, why is that important to you? What about that is important to you? And you'd be surprised at like, oh, I was thinking this, but they really meant that. Write my notes down. So the more you really get
Yeah.
in connection with your people and really find out exactly what they're looking for, and then like I'll have the wife or the girlfriend say something, and the husband look at her like, I didn't know you like that. I didn't know you didn't like that. What? You like that? And it's they kind of learn about each other.
Yeah.
So sometimes you'll be going after what the wife said if you only talk to her, and now the husband's saying no to everything because he's on a whole different page. So you really need to get them to listen to each other. And then, all right, well, now let's meld what you both want and find out what is our highest priorities and what we're looking for that you're both in agreement with. So it is so important to sit down with people and ask a lot of questions before you ever get in a car with them.
Yeah. And that's why you're so good at what you do, Pam, because you hit the nail right on the head. Oftentimes when I have conversations with people and I ask that question, how much can you comfortably afford? You'll get 2 different answers from each individual. So it's like, okay, well, we've got to get on the same page here at what you're comfortable with. One might be overly conservative, the other one might be a bit more aggressive. So let's find a common bound where you're going to be comfortable. And it's questions. We need to know about you, Mr. or Miss Buyer. We need to know about you, Mr. or Miss Seller. You need to work with a professional like Pam who knows the marketplace and can assist you in fine tuning your search based on what your true needs are. So awesome. Awesome.
Yes.
Well, Pam, this has been a tremendous amount of fun. I've got a couple more quick questions, not overly related to real estate. How is there a book that has made an influence or impact on you, either personally or professionally? Is there any one book that you might suggest or recommend to a prospective individual?
I am a huge Dave Ramsey fan, and The Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey has changed my life, and I love to talk about it. And his theories on how to get rid of debt, how to pay off your house, and it's all about a mindset. And once you understand the myth that people think, like when I was younger, I would say, well, this my husband told me this: you will always have bills. So the day that you die, I'm like, okay, well, we'll always have a mortgage. We'll always have, credit card debt. And Dave Ramsey
Car
says,
payment.
no, you pay off all your debt. This is how you do it. And you pay off your mortgage and you save X amount of percentage of every paycheck into your retirement fund. And he says it's not sexy, it's not fun, but it does the job. And he really teaches you how to be a millionaire within really not that long of a time. And people always think like, I have to make a lot of money. I have to have a big title. That is so not true. You'd be shocked at how many people that are doctors. They don't save. They like to spend sometimes, but they don't really save their money, and they're not millionaires. And then you got the guy that makes $50,000 his whole life, but he started young at 18 years old, and he put so much away, and he was very good with his money, and he worked hard. He was a millionaire at age 50, and he could retire. So don't think it's all about, I got to make the big money. You don't. It's what you do with your money, and it's your mindset about money. And once I got on his track of how to think about money, it actually becomes fun. People are like, oh God, it's no fun to save. Actually, once you get going and you see the results, it is so exciting. Like I remember with my husband, he'd like give me money to help paid towards principal. I'm like, okay, how much do we owe? And I go on the computer and I'm like, all right, we only have this much more to go. It was a game. And when we
It was a
paid off,
game.
it was so exciting.
You know,
So
what I share with individuals is if you take your principal and interest payment, divide it by 12, and add that amount every month
mhm.
regularly. So let's say your payment was $1,200, so you add an extra $100 to your payment, you will reduce your mortgage by 7 years. So now let's
7 years paying interest,
yeah, 7 years
And
of
the
paying
other
interest.
thing that I've learned that people don't understand, like when you take out a 30-year loan, like you're not doing 50 to interest and 50 to your principal. You
Right.
are putting like $10 towards your principal,
Yeah.
and then the rest goes to interest. And then when you're at 15 years, that's when it's 50-50. And
Right.
then past 15, then you put a little bit more towards principal. So your first couple of years of owning a home, you really haven't put much towards your principal. If your home appreciates, that's extra money on top of that. But that's why I tell people, if you're going to sell, you need at least 3 years to break even, hopefully.
Yeah.
So people don't
Yeah.
realize how little of it goes towards. And then when people refinance, I tell them, if you've already been like 5 years into your loan, don't refinance for a 30-year, because now you're going back to that again, and you're adding 5 years onto paying off your house. Do a 25-year loan, or if
Yeah.
you can, do a 20-year loan if you can afford it.
And at Loan Depot, we can customize your loan payment. So let's say, and we were doing this a lot during the great refinance boom of the past few years, where you had 19 years left, we could refinance you at 19 years. So this way, you didn't lose that time frame, and you continued. Because I too am an advocate, even though I'm in the lending industry, I'm an advocate of trying to uh, pay off your home as quickly as possible. I think that then if you take that additional saving and put it towards other investments or even possibly another home, you'll continue to enrich yourself longer term. And that's what helps create that generational wealth that we were discussing earlier.
Mhm.
Awesome. So, Pam, here's a fun question that you're not anticipating. Do you believe in aliens? Why or why not?
Ooh, someone just asked me this question a couple days, and we have a friend that totally believes in aliens. I do, because I feel like there are so many planets in this universe. We can't be the only living creatures on Earth. There's got to be aliens out there. So I've never seen one, but I do believe they're out there.
Okay. All right. Well, really good. Really good. Pam, this has been so much fun. I really thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be on our program. Uh, Lend Me Your Ear with Pat Cannone. If a customer, prospective buyer, or seller wants to get a hold of you, Pam, how can they reach you?
The best is to give me a call. My cell number is 630-935-2777, and I would love to help you.
Can you give that number one more time, Pam?
630-935-2777.
Great. And Pam, you're like a typical realtor, right? You work days and nights, so a consumer can reach out to you into the early evening and on weekends if necessary. And I know you from experience. You always return calls. You're always there for your buyers and sellers. So
Yes.
thank you once again, Pam. This has been so much fun. Every time I talk to you, I learn a lot more about our industry, which excites me, and I know that real estate excites you. And we loved sharing what we know about the industry with active home buyers and sellers. So thank you again, Pam, for joining me.
Thank you for having me. It's been a blast, and I love working with you, Pat, because you are the best.
Well, thanks, Pam. I really appreciate it. Goodbye for now. We'll be in touch. Take care, everyone.
Bye, Pat.
Bye bye.